I'm excited to share this layered stamping method with you. It's fast and easy to do, and the results are fabulous. Have you ever seen these vintage-looking collage-style stamps? They can be a lot of fun to use in junk journals, scrapbooks, and card making, but you don't need to go out and buy new stamps if you're willing to work with what you already have. Now, you can just stamp a bunch of different designs on top of one another, and it doesn't look bad at all, but it is a little busy and chaotic, especially if we're planning to add color as well. So what if we take a different approach? In this tutorial, I'll be using a waterproof ink pad, washi tape, a selection of rubber stamps, watercolor paper, cold pressed or hot press should work fine, and watercolor paint supplies. The first step is to decide what you want your main image to be. Think of this image as the top layer. I'm going to be using this mushroom stamp, and because this stamp is the star of the show, I'll be protecting it from all future layers. Using your washi tape, cover your stamping, or at least the part you want to protect. This tape came in a bundle pack, and it's one that I don't really love, so I don't mind using some for this project. One nice thing about this Ranger ink is how fast it dries, so I can apply the washi tape almost immediately without smudging. I'm just tearing off small strips, it doesn't need to be exact. By the way, I've also used some of my old rubber stamps, the kind that are mounted on wood blocks, and it works, but the downside is not being able to see through them, so the placement can get a little tricky. So now what I'm doing is I'm coming in with my second stamp, this little textured rectangle. I'll place it kind of off to the side here. I'm also choosing to protect the rectangle from future layers because the pattern is pretty busy on its own and I don't want anything overlapping it. Now, when I stamp this simple frame, both the rectangle and the mushroom cluster are protected. See how nice that is to have the clear stamp so I can see where the image is going? Let's finish up with a small figure 13 stamp towards the top of the frame, so it has the look of a nature specimen. Oh, I think that's upside down. I'm not sure how I missed that, but that's okay. Now let's carefully peel off the washi tape and see the results. I'm going to be putting the tape aside so I can reuse it for the next one. At this point, you can leave it as is or add some color. I love to add just a few splashes of watercolor paint, so I'm going to do that now before we get into one more example. I usually like to stick with between 3 and 5 stamps, but I'm sure you could get really creative here if you wanted to. So you'll notice that I am making no effort at all to be neat and tidy. I don't care if I stay in the lines or not, and when I apply a paint color next to another one, I'm sure to let them touch so they blend and bleed. I feel like this style benefits more from inconsistencies and those messes than it does from care and precision. Why not throw on some splatters while we're at it? See that lovely mess? Pretty cute, even with the upside down lettering. Now, let's run through one more example so you'll be full of ideas and ready to roll when this video is over. I'm using a floral postage stamp this time, along with some wavy postal markings. I'm going to protect them both using my washi tape. By the way, I think you could also use liquid resist for this if you wanted to be more precise with your masking. I haven't tried it myself, but I think as long as you use a thin layer and wait for the stamp ink to dry before you apply it, I'm pretty sure it would work. So if anyone decides to give it a go, please leave a note in the comments letting us know how it went. Just a reminder, I'm using that same washi tape over again without any issues. The next stamp is just a bunch of dots, but I tend to gravitate towards these simple textures for my backgrounds because they can be used in a number of ways. Stamps with cursive writing and sheet music are also good background options. I'm applying a circular frame now. The Ranger brand ink comes in a number of colors, and I'd love to play around with some different inks for each stamp. Maybe that will be a future video. I'll include the information for the supplies I'm using down in the description of the video in case you're interested. Now I'm just finishing up here with the word joy. Let's slowly lift and peel that tape away. All right, that looks nice. I'll speed up the next portion of the video as I add the watercolors. Colored pencils would also work well for this part, or maybe even soft pastels, although I always make a huge mess when I get those out. I really have to be in the mood to be covered in rainbow dust. I'm just keeping this really simple with some primary colors, just slapping on some paint. And how about another splatter? As we end this video, take another look at the tree image from the beginning of the video. Can you tell which stamp was applied first? And where the washi tape was placed? Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll see your own stamp collection in a new light full of possibilities.